Dead by Daylight is a game that features some of the most well-known slasher killers in history, getting licensing deals from franchises with huge followings. And with each new license added to DBD, there's a huge influx of players who want to see their favourite slasher in action. So surely with exposure to that degree, DBD would be one of the biggest games ever, right? Well, DBD isn't doing too bad at all. In fact, it's doing pretty bloody well. But huge spikes like that do show that there is work that needs to be done. For those of you who are curious, that spike is actually in May of 2019 when they released the endgame collapse. That probably shows that a lot of people were looking forward to longer match times as promised, but then quickly backed off once they realized endgame collapse didn't do what they said it would. Anyway, back to the topic of the video. So, how do we prevent drops like that and ensure our players are hooked on enjoying DBD for as long as possible? In order to do that, we need to delve into psychology and how that applies to game design. Let's start off by looking at an extremely successful game franchise. One so successful, in fact, it has the Matthew Coty seal of approval. That's right, we're talking about
Civilization.
In 2010, Sid Meier made a GDC talk titled Psychology of Game Design. In this talk, he covered 3 things he does in his games in order to get people to want to play them. The first thing is create a linear sense of progression. The second thing is make the player constantly want one more go. And the third step is to make the player feel above average at the game. So let's tackle the first step and see how we can apply that to Dead by Daylight. How do we create a linear sense of progression? In order to do this, we need to make use of the Zeigarnik effect and the Ovsiankina effect. The Zeigarnik effect shows that humans are more likely to remember incomplete tasks, and the Ovsiankina effect shows that humans tend to pick up incomplete tasks without being prompted to. How do video games make use of this? Well, with progression bars. Something as simple as an XP bar can really help entice your players to play more. Just seeing that half-empty bar makes a player want to play more and fill it up, even if they know that once they fill it, there's just going to be another level, and these levels don't stop coming. And as you know, there are levels in DBD and there is a progression bar, but the reason this does not work in DBD is because the bar is not prominent enough. Like, sure, it pops up for a few seconds after you finish the match, but that quickly moves away, and then when you're in the menus you don't really see it. Sure, you can reveal it by hovering over your level, but that occupies a tiny square in the top right hand corner of your screen. It needs to be bold, easily accessible in the player's view at pretty much all times. It needs to be there reminding the player what they're playing for. Progress. A game that does this really well is Fortnite. In the menu, it's clearly there right in front of your eyes, and it really does help, even if us players think we don't care. Number 2 is the step that DBD really struggles with. It's with making the player constantly want to have another turn. And balance, bugs, or unfun killers or whatever don't play as big of an impact as you might think. So to everyone in behavior that's watching this, you can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not going to be nagging you about balance and stuff here. You're safe from me. The biggest issue DBD has is the flow, the ease of jumping in from one match to the next. It's genuinely quite a hassle trying to jump into the next match after you've played one. It's not as simple as just press a button and queue, because when you finish a match you get put onto the post-game menu, and then you have to back out to the main menu, and then you have to queue, and then you get put into another queue, and then you have to wait for more players, and then you have to ready up again, and then you load into the match. To be honest, it just gives us too much time to think. You want us to be in the match before we have a chance to even question it. But more often than not, what happens is we sit here thinking, do I really want to play another match? And then halfway through the queue, we just Alt F4 because we're probably not in the mood anymore. Now, obviously that isn't helped by how long queues are. Like 20-minute minimum killer queue time is absurd, but I'm not going to give you trouble for that because I don't think that's intentional. I think there's obviously something gone wrong in the back end, which you guys are probably working on. So what you take from that behavior is you need to optimize the transition from one match into the next. Keep us trapped in that gameplay loop. The average human attention span right now is 8 seconds. You need to make sure that nothing can grab our attention, no Twitter notification or whatever. You need to make sure our attention is on your game at all times. And this brings us perfectly into our next point, but of the same topic, flow state. This is when a user is quote unquote in the zone and their attention is focused solely on that one particular thing, in this case, Dead by Daylight. Game designers can help ease their players into a flow state by looking at operant conditioning models. Pavlovian conditioning is reactive and Skinner conditioning is proactive. What we want to focus on is Pavlovian conditioning, or reactiveness, which means we want to react to what is given to us, which unfortunately means RNG. Let's quickly explain why proactiveness is bad for a game's player retention. If a game's proactive, it means the player has enough control to sort of determine the outcome of the situation before it happens. Their brain already knows what will happen before it happens, which means the outcome is known to them. They don't get that spark of dopamine. However, if we take RNG to constantly drip feed the player new potential utilities, e.g. pallets, then they get a spark of dopamine every time they see that. A great example would be in a chase. A survivor's running away from the killer and they go to turn a corner to a tile which could have a pallet but could not have a pallet. The second that survivor sees the pallet, that is boom, instant dopamine flowing. And although I personally hate RNG in games, the devs have utilized this very well. Whether it was intentional or not, the fact that DBD is a very random game really helps with keeping dopamine flowing. Well, for survivors that is. A quick side note, Windows. Many DBD players do not value Windows enough or at all. And if you can condition the players to realize their value, that's more dopamine that they could be receiving. And the way you do this is by promoting players learning. Because the fact is, most of DBD's players either don't know what's going on, or they're casual and don't care, or whatever. But the fact is, you need to try and teach players to value that tool, because that means that's more dopamine flowing in their brains when they come by Windows, which at the moment most players aren't getting. But other than that, for the most part, Behavior have absolutely smashed this one. Whether it was intentional or not, they've got this part in the bag. And then part 3, make the player feel above average. Behavior has this partially done, and the parts that they have done, they've done very well. This is the reason why pipping is so easy. It makes players feel like they performed particularly well to the point where the game recognizes that and says, hey, you're better than we thought, let's move you up a bit. And this gameplay loop, excuse the pun, is more beneficial for survivors because although they died, they got to have long chases with the killer, making them feel like they were consistently outplaying the killer. This is partially why there are way more survivor players than killers, because they get more positive feedback even when they lose. The player needs to feel like they're winning more than they are losing, which is probably why you get a pip pretty much every match no matter what, because the game wants you to think you did really well regardless of what happened in game. Now this is a really nice segue to the question of why does rank mean nothing? And I believe this is intentional. I believe this is not designed to be an accurate skill measurement tool, much like rank or TP or ELO in League of Legends or Overwatch. I think it's intended to give all players a feeling of both reward, progress, and in the case of bad players being high rank, it is intended to give everyone the feeling of being better than average. So I don't think that this ranking system is going to be changing all too much, because it's in Behavior's best interest to keep it this way. Another question players frequently ask, which I think is related to that, is why does matchmaking put random ranks in the same lobbies? And I don't know if this is intentional or not, but this also benefits Behavior. By putting average people in a match with noobs, it allows them to feel above average, because they're playing against people who just cannot cope with them. It gives them a feeling of power, and it makes them feel like they're a true god at the game. The last topic I want to talk about is progress and customization. So let's start off with the XP bar. We've already spoken about it. It exists, but it isn't prominent enough. We need to make it visible to the player at pretty much all times and make it very bold and eye-catching, so once again it's reminding the player to play more. The next thing is going to be, why is a Blood Web so grueling? This was accidental as the blood point economy was designed around the game's small original perk set, but this is now once again beneficial as it takes a very long time to quote-unquote complete DBD. Users are much more likely to quit a game if they feel there is nothing more to do. So although the Blood Web is really upsettingly slow and tedious, it's like that for a reason, and although they are considering bumping our blood point gain up, I don't think it will be by much, because once again it's in their best interest to stop us from completing the Blood Web. And then comes customization. This is one of the best ways to keep a player engaged in your game, not just by the customization itself, but by the attraction of trying to get more cosmetics to customize their characters with, because it allows a player to once again express themselves in game and then build a connection to their character that they have pretty much created. Even if it's on a pre-existing character, it's still something they've made and something they share a bond with, and they take a liking to. Now, although DBD does have lots of cosmetics in game, I think it does a lot of things wrong with cosmetics. Let's talk about how we can fix it. The first thing is temptation. When you add new skins to DBD, you occasionally show a pop-up showing off these new skins. However, A, they're not accurate to what the skins actually look like, and B, they do nothing to entice the player. Sure, it brings awareness to the fact these skins exist, but there is nothing that compels the player to want to get this skin, which means A, that's not a bond being built, and B, that's not profit that you're getting, which means you've missed out on an opportunity to make that player even more invested in your game, and you've missed out on money. In fact, I want to go even deeper into skins because they offer a wide variety of benefits that are not being fully utilized. By far, the most common type of skin in this game comes in a set. It's where you buy a full-on outfit for a character. You can buy the pieces separately, but the issue is that the parts don't match with anything else, so it means you either have that whole outfit or nothing. And this is very, very counterintuitive because the whole point of buying cosmetics is to come up with something unique, not some basic skin that everyone else is gonna have. This is very, very pointless. You need to completely step away, at least mostly, from making full sets. Obviously, it won't hurt to release them, but you need to make individual pieces that mainly can be mixed and matched with already existing skins. And to finalize the topic of skins, let's talk about the Battle Pass. It's no secret that Battle Passes are extremely successful in games, but I feel like the DBD Battle Pass isn't quite up to par with other ones, and it might not be benefiting you as much as it should do. And the main thing I'm focused on here is the skins in the Battle Pass. I understand they're free, so they can't be like top tier ones because you want people to pay for them, but the reason the Battle Pass is successful in other games is because those good skins that they include entice the players to grind out the game to earn those skins. And with our Battle Pass, nobody wants to grind for those skins because nobody wants those skins. Now, there might be some players that do value them, but for the most part, nobody really cares. I know there's other benefits to the Battle Pass, but once again, looking at the skins can really benefit your player retention. And before we end the video, I'm going to give you 2 more tips for player retention. This comes back to the progress bars. We're talking about the level bar. Let's talk about rituals. They are a really good means for keeping the players involved and pushing for something. However, the fact that you have to click a teeny tiny button to see them is pretty redundant. I know they do pop up when you first log in, but players will quickly forget about them. If you can migrate those to appear near wherever the XP bar will appear once you've hopefully adjusted that, then you can help players immediately jump in to do whatever those challenges are. Because right now people either A, forget about them, or B, don't care for them. So just having them on screen will really entice players to do them. My final tip is sound design, and the best example of this I can give is the on-hit sound as a killer when you whack a survivor. At one point in time there was a really heavy, satisfying clump when you smacked a survivor. That is no longer the case. It's a very light and empty, hollow sound. If you can bring back some more satisfying sounds for both sides, like that heavy clump, that will really make players feel more rewarded just for playing good in the match. Once again, comes back to that dopamine flow. But anyway, that's enough from me. If they want more, they can hire me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.